Welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at sort of two aspects here. One is we'll put a little bit of randomness in so that the ball doesn't always move directly down. So I'll show you how to do that. Pretty simple. And then we'll also look at coding it so that the ball bounces off the edges, and we'll create a paddle so it can bounce off the paddle as well. All right, but the first bit is dealing with this heading here. And so at the moment it's hard-coded to 270. And so we're just going to get rid of that because we don't always want it to start off by heading directly down. Okay. Now we've done this before. We've introduced the idea of a random number. And so the random number generator is here, random integer. Okay. And we just pull it in and you got your range here. Now our two values, we can't just go from 0 to 360 or else we'd have the ball sort of shooting anywhere, which I guess we could. But what we'll do is we'll have it in a down direction. And so if you remember, 270 was straight down. So we want to go a little bit left of 270 and a little bit right of 270. And what we'll do is we'll go 45 degrees on each side. So 270 minus 45 is... what is that there? 225, right? And then conversely, 270 plus 45 puts us at 350. All right. So now if you try this, really nothing's changed except the ball should no longer go straight down, although it could, I guess. It will likely go on some sort of angle. Okay. So the next thing we want to look at is getting the ball to bounce. And again, App Inventor makes it pretty easy for you. And so to do that, basically we want to look at is when the ball hits an edge, okay, so the sides, and we won't worry about sort of the difference between the bottom yet. We'll come to that when we start looking at how to do the scoring, but we'll just get it to bounce around. And so basically when it gets to the edge, we want the ball to bounce. And so again, App Inventor makes it quite easy. So basically on your canvas, I believe, let's just see here. Oh no, sorry, with the ball. So the ball itself looks for it, not the canvas. So when the ball reaches the edge. Okay, good. And so what it does here is it will return, or it will let you know as a parameter what edge it's touched. So we will talk about that. You can see there it's an integer, one of 8 directions, north, northeast, and so on. So that will come into play a little bit when we want to figure out if it's, we want to do a separate action based on which edge it's touched. Okay, but we won't worry about that now. We'll just get it to bounce around. So when it reaches the edge, what does it do? Well, we want it to bounce. And so down here, we want it to bounce. And what's it going to bounce with? Well, the edge, we just have to define the edge. Well, the edge is, whoops, the edge. Okay. So it's just going to bounce off the edge. And it will bounce, the way it's coded is it will bounce how you'd expect it to bounce. Sort of if it comes in on an angle, it leaves on that angle. Okay, just sort of like a reflection. All right, now what I've done, and I haven't mentioned it yet, is I've put in a paddle, and I just quickly made this in Photoshop. You can do a better job, but I'll give you this file. Looking at it now, it's probably a little bit too thick. I did 75 pixels horizontal and 25 pixels as the height. I might have cut that down maybe to 15 or something like that. But anyways, there's my paddle. So I should actually rename it. Okay, so don't forget you can upload it. Okay, you have to bring in an image sprite and then attach the picture to the image sprite. And so the let's just rename this here to paddle sprite. Oops. And basically we want it to bounce off of this as well. Now, this is not an edge, okay? So the edges are just the edges of the canvas. So we have to do a little bit of a different programming with this sprite. So we'll go back to the blocks Okay, and so now what we have to do is back onto the ball. When it, instead of reaches the edge, there is a collide with, okay? And what it collides with is determined as the other. And you can actually probably check this. I know for sure that, like say in Unity, when we do the game programming, we can give them what's called a tag, and so it can check to see what it's actually colliding with. Not 100% sure with App Inventor yet, but I'm sure there's some sort of functionality to differentiate between what you're colliding with. Anyways, so here what we're going to do is if it hits, we want the ball to collide. If it hits the paddle, we want the ball to bounce off of it. So again, it's going to be a kind of a bounce, but we're going to have to sort of program it a little bit differently, okay? And so to do this, we're just going to change the direction of it, because really all that happens in a bounce is that you get that reflection. So I'm going to click on ball again, and this time we're going to set the heading. There we are, set ball heading. 2. Now this is the question here. Now, if you think about a bounce, like a reflection, and if you've taken Physics 11, this maybe is a bit easier. And that's what I always recommend. If you're ever interested in game design, and really even programming, Physics 11 is probably the best course to take, because it gets you to start thinking about just everyday things in a bit of a mathematical sense. I love teaching Physics 11 during the summer, and it's a great course that I would highly recommend that you do take. Now, if you think about reflection, as something comes in, it sort of bounces off. There's kind of a forgotten term of it, but a perpendicular line, 90-degree angle. With whatever the surface is that you are reflecting off of, and you have your incident angle, okay, and your reflective angle. Now, if you sort of do the difference there, it's actually sort of a 360-degree difference between the reflected, or the incident angle, and the reflected angle. So what we're going to do is, to mathematically model that, is we're just going to take 360 degrees and subtract its current heading, okay? And then so that will set its new heading. So I'm going to grab the math block. Now we're going to do a -1 this time. And we're going to set that to, we need numbers here. I'll just grab this. Control C, Control V. And I'm going to plug that in. So it's going to be 360, whoops. And what we're going to do is subtract its current heading. So on the ball, we're just going to grab its heading. So ball dot, there we are, ball dot heading. And we just throw it in there. Okay, so when it collides with it, it will bounce off at 360. So what you should do, again, is stop. Well, I'm going to end the video here, but we're going to stop. And you should make sure you save it and try it and see if it works. All right, and hopefully you've got a ball bouncing off the edges, okay, when it hits an edge. And then also you've got it, if it hits the paddle, it bounces off the paddle as well. Obviously we don't have any movement for the paddle yet. We will get to that. All right, so we'll stop it here and see you in the next video.